The internet is in meltdown. Timo Werner has signed for Tottenham Hotspurs and no one can agree if this is going to be a good or a bad signing. Is he a Chelsea reject that couldn't finish his dinner, or is he a player that just needs the right manager and system to thrive and get the best out of him? What is the truth? I'm going to give you my opinions on what I think and whether I think this is going to be a good signing for Tottenham Hotspurs or if this is one that's going to flop. I want to first talk about his time at Chelsea though, because it was only 18 months ago where he left Chelsea to return to Germany. However, the world of football moves really fast and maybe we've just pigeonholed him into being this, really bad striker in front of goal who misses all of these chances. What really was the truth during his time at Chelsea? And when he signed for Chelsea, he came trying to break Chelsea's striker curse. He signed from RB Leipzig for £47.5 million. And obviously you can see why Chelsea signed him. When he was at RB Leipzig previously, the 2019-2020 season, he scored a total of 28 goals and got 8 assists. Now that was a remarkable feat in the Bundesliga, and Chelsea were hoping that they could translate that into Premier League goals. Signed him for £47.5 million. However, in 35 matches, 29 starts, he only scored 6 and assisted 8 times in the league. And if you look at his XG and XAG, which is expected goals and his expected assists, he was expected to score 11.4 goals and he only scored 6, and he's expected to get 5.6 assists and he actually got 8, so he did better there. But his goals, he massively underperformed. And then in the second season, when you look at him at Chelsea, 21 matches played, 15 starts, not getting that trust of the manager, only 4 goals and 1 assist, and he obviously expecting to score 6.8 goals and 0.3 assists. So massively down, which ultimately led to his departure from Chelsea because simply he wasn't clinical enough. And you have to remember, towards the back end of his time at Chelsea, he wasn't even being used as a number 9 because of the fact that he wasn't clinical in front of goal, and we've just proven that with the stats. In fact, he was being pushed out to the left-hand side because of the fact that his work rate was the thing that was really endearing to Thomas Tuchel. It was the fact that, off the ball, he was going to work really hard, press the opposition, and win the ball back in the attacking areas, which would create chances forward side elsewhere. However, he wasn't being that number 9 which he was signed for, which ultimately did leave him to being sold back to Germany 2 years later for a fee of £25.3 million. And you thought to yourself, okay, he's left the Premier League, there's so many strikers who come to England and it hasn't quite worked out for them. So maybe when he goes back to Germany, it'll be better for him. And he does have somewhat of a mini resurgence while at RB Leipzig the second time round. This time in the 2022-23 season, he plays 27 times, 23 of those are starts, and he gets 9 goals and 3 assists. And everything about an output of 12 goals and assists from 23 starts, that's almost a goal and assist per 180 minutes of football. And it's okay, it's not groundbreaking, it's not anything to be super excited about. But for once, his XG of 9 and expected assisted goals of 3 actually matches up with the numbers of 9 and 3, and he isn't massively underperforming. He's actually matching what his goals and assist returns should be based on the stats. However, this season, only 8 matches he's played, 2 of those have been starts, and only 207 minutes of Bundesliga action this season. And that's really hampered him, and ultimately what's resulted in him having to be moved to Spurs. I mean, if you think about why, Luis Openda has been signed, Benjamin Sesko's, Xavi Simons on loan from PSG, Elmas has been signed this January, Yusuf Poulsen's been there for a while now. And all of these players have been starting games of football ahead of Timo Werner and been a lot more clinical. If you look at another player that's left RB Leipzig this January, it has been Fabio Carvalho of Liverpool, just because he hasn't been getting the game time necessary. And I think it's one where Leipzig have decided, do you know what, at the age of 27, turning 28 in March, this isn't a player necessarily that we can invest lots of time into because his goal output isn't going to be there and what we need it to be. So with the eye test, he wasn't great at Chelsea, and the stats now prove it as well to show that he's been continuously underperforming his goals and assists for the last 4 seasons running. So why have Spurs decided to sign him? One reason is, I think, because of the fact that Spurs have so many forwards who are out currently injured. You've got the likes of Ivan Perisic with his ACL injury, Velez with his knee injury, Mano Solomon's not meant to be back till February, Ryan Sessegnon has only just returned back to action, and also the main one, Heung-min Son is away in the Asia Cup with South Korea and he's expected to miss Manchester United away in the league, Manchester City at home in the FA Cup, Brentford at home in the league, Everton away in the league, and Brighton and Hove Albion at home in the league. And there's a potential that he might also miss Wolves at home, but that depends to see how well South Korea do and if they get all the way to the final, but with something isn't entirely unexpected considering the quality of South Korea. So that means that at this moment in time, that the forwards that Spurs do have at their disposal are Brennan Johnson, Dejan Kulusevski, Richarlison, Dean Scarlett and Brian Hill. Scarlett is obviously a very young, promising forward. However, he lacks Premier League experience at the top level and can't really be relied upon week in, week out. Brian Hill has done alright for Spurs at times so far this season. However, he's been linked with the move away on loan and in some cases with an obligation to buy in some of these loan deals according to rumours. So the next month or so you're only left with Kulusevski, Richarlison and Johnson, and you're going to need some depth in that front line in order to compete and make sure that Spurs season is kept on track and they continue to fight for top 4 and potentially more if they really want to push the boat out there. And when he does come into the Spurs side, I think it is going to be mainly from the left hand side and not in that central striker role because of the fact that we've just seen and talked about the fact that his goals aren't really there and what's needed to be a number 9 is not clinical enough in front of goal. But from the left-hand side, there is potential for him to do really well. That's obviously where Thomas Tuchel played him in Chelsea's Champions League run, in which they won. And you remember the winning goal, the fact that Werner was the one who created the space and play from the left-hand side for the goal for Kai Havertz. But I think really he's going to fit Ange Postecoglou's style to a T apart from the goals, because I think everything else is passes completed 93 percentile, progressive carries 93%, progressive passes. But the thing is, when they look at defensive numbers, the one that really stands out is his interceptions. In the 85th percentile, 4 interceptions. And I think that's the key stat, is because Spurs with Ange are going to be pressing so high up the pitch and trying to win the ball back in attacking areas to create chances for themselves, that I think that Timo Werner is going to be perfect at that. Is he going to stay in the long term? I don't necessarily think so. The deal is, of course, just a loan deal with an option to buy for £15 million. It's not something that's going to break the bank for Spurs if they do decide to buy him permanently. It's just a cheap amount for what will be at the time a 28-year-old. And if he does really well, then why not? You may as well buy him for options. But I think mainly this is going to be just a loan deal for the here and now. I think it's a bit of smart business. Sign someone who has been in the Premier League before, lived in London, shouldn't take too long to acclimatise, and fits Ange Postecoglou's style perfectly. Is he going to be lethal in front of goal? Absolutely not. I don't think much has changed. But if Ange can get Richarlison scoring goals, then I think, why not do the same for Werner? It's a punt with very low risk. But I think ultimately for Spurs, this is just a loan deal with an option to buy. There's no obligation. So if it doesn't quite work out, they can always just ship him back to RB Leipzig at the end of the season. But if he does end up doing well, then they can, of course, buy him permanently for only £15 million. A cheap amount when you think about a Premier League club. He's a player who's played in the league before, lived in London before, so hopefully acclimatization shouldn't take too long. Ultimately, I think it's just a transfer with very low risk to it and something that could be ultimately a very smart piece of business for Spurs.